Welcome. Welcome to Wharton Moneyball. Welcome to a full hour of sports analytics here on the Wharton Podcast Network. This is Cade Massey hosting this July week with the whole crew, and it has been a while since we've had the whole crew in here. Even Shane Jensen is back in country, in office, ready to go. Eric Bradlow is here from points afar. Adi Wyner in the office as well. Adi's working. He's doing the teacher thing at this moment, doing the Lord's work on campus in Philadelphia. I am not. I am distant as well, but we're all here together. Glad to be with the crew. We're going to run an hour this summer show as we typically do. We're recording on Tuesday. In fact, we're recording as France and Spain are playing the World Cup semifinal in Dallas, I believe. Is that right? And Eric Bradlow tells us that Spain has scored on a penalty kick early in the match to take a 1-0 lead. We'll keep that posted as we go along because we are interested. We will have a guest in the first half hour as we typically do these days, and then we'll roll into what we somewhat crazily call open lines in the second half of the show and see what is on everyone else's mind. But in the first half, we're going to take as a guide good friend, longtime friend of the show, one of the absolute leaders in sports analytics that we know of anywhere. Eric Eager is here to join us. Eric is also in Philadelphia, helping Adi with that good work on campus, working with the students, taking a break from his day job with the Carolina Panthers, where he is the vice president of football analytics. Eric, I may be rolling into his third season. Let's see if I have that right. He, of course, was with PFF. He really kind of helped build out the research program there at PFF. And before that, somewhere along the line, he picked up a math PhD. Kid's got a few things going on, and
he was a tenured math professor. We can't forget that.
Tenured math professor, not just a math PhD. He's done a few things. Eric, good to see you. Thanks for joining.
Cade, thank you so much. Shane, Adi, Eric, it's a pleasure. I can't remember who I was telling this to. Maybe it was at lunch. This was one of the shows that when I got onto the show for the first time, it was like one of the fun. You do so many radio hits, you do so many of these like content things for sports, and this was a show that I had admired for years and years and years, and it was fun to finally be a guest. And now it was fun to hear my boss Brant Tillis be a guest a few months ago. I thought he did a great job. So it's really fun to be back on. And even though I can't really talk football, there's more than enough things that are going on that'll be fun to talk about.
Well, I told Cade that you would be wearing your math professor hat and joining us as an analyst and someone who just thinks about sports. And that's what we do each week.
That's fine. That'll be enjoyable. Of course, it's coming up on football season, and so the desire to ask you questions, even on college football. I was in the gym this morning, and I was getting a replay of like Oklahoma, South Carolina, and I was just eating it up because I'm so desperate for college football. But we're going to set that aside for the next half hour and just find out what else you've been thinking about, Eric. What's caught your eye? And why don't we start? I'll start, and then you go from there. Start with the home run competition. You and Adi, at least, maybe others, you and Adi were at the ballpark last night at the home run competition. You guys, I know, were talking about it. So what caught your eye about that?
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. I mean, I think what's been cool, when you are, kind of working for a vendor, right? You have to be kind of on call all the time. And, since joining Carolina, I've had a decent amount of like free time as far as, this time of year. And also, certain nights and weekends are sort of walled off thanks to some of the graces of my bosses. So I've been watching a lot more baseball with my daughter, Madeline, and she's a big time Milwaukee Brewers fan. And I remember texting Adi and saying like, hey, why are they stealing more bases? It's like just being so curious about a game that you sort of like grow up with. And you obviously read Moneyball and all that stuff, but then like as I grew in one sport, I let sort of my interest in others wane a little bit, and it's been fun to kind of reconnect with baseball a little bit. And then last night, being able to go and see, I remember there was one of the batters, Adi turns to me, he's like, yeah, of these batters, his like exit velocity is not as good as the rest of them. I don't predict that he'll do particularly well tonight. And sure enough, that happened. And it was just kind of fun, like the amount of information that some of these events give us. And
Adi, can I just ask you
I
a
just thought
follow-up?
that was
Adi, can I ask you a follow-up question on that? Do you have some empirical data that suggests that exit velocity is strongly predictive of the number of home runs? Like maybe you could also imagine, I'll make this up, someone has only a finite amount of power to put into swings. Maybe hitting 12 home runs each of 370 feet at a 95 exit velocity is better than hitting 6 of them at a 115 where you're swinging through the fences.
All right, that's a great question, and I'll answer that and I'll turn it back to Eric as well. So the player in question actually was Ben Rice, who has by far the lowest exit velocity among the players last night. But he's, I think, is second to Schwarber in numbers of home runs at this point of the season. So what makes a home run hitter is not just exit velocity; it's picking the right pitches. But Ben Wright clearly picked the wrong pitcher. He picked his dad, and he couldn't throw it over. And he didn't seem to want to wait it out until the ball was right over him. But it made a difference. I mean, the fact is that the titanic home runs being hit at the game last night that Junior Caminero was hitting, that the Red Sox guy whose name I'm blanking on, remind me, Shane, was unbelievable home runs.
Oh, you mean
Wilson
Contreras?
Winslow
Contreras, yeah, sorry.
I mean, I can tell you that when you don't get all of it or at the right angle, having those extra 5 miles per hour makes a difference between a home run and a flyout.
Well,
there was quite a few balls that went off the wall.
Well, and one thing that was really, really interesting that you pointed out was the first 2 hitters got to hit with a wind that was significantly, well, not, I don't know, significantly, but like certainly there. And then the middle hitters to the end of the group didn't get nearly as much wind with them. And then the difference last night between the left-handed batters and the right-handed batters was interesting. Like the right-handed batters seemed to have had a much better time of it. And, even Schwarber, like, in his first set of pitches was not as impressive maybe as his second set of pitches. And yeah, it was fun just looking at like the heterogeneity of the situations that even all the batters within the same competition had to face.
So I did a little bit of a pre home run derby homework. I actually did an analysis, and I'll put the question to you. So what I did was for every home run derby participant in the last 25 years, I gave them a score on what type of player their career has been or has ended up. A couple of them are on the edge, like last year, Cal Raleigh is really kind of beginning. And I rated the players by the group. So the winners, the runner-ups, and everybody else. I compared their average kind of quality rating on a scale of 1 to 5. What do you think I observed? How
career
runner-ups compared to the losers?
Career quality
over their entire career. So one number, and I'm a little bit sketchy on guys like Raleigh who have a very. I tried my best. It's not like
to be clear, Adi, you want us to make a prediction of the average 1 to 5 rating of the winner, the second place person, and then everyone else?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I will guess an inverted U.
Okay. Anyone else?
No hypothesis, no really.
No, no, great one. Shane?
Yeah, uniform. These are all like elite, like home
I
run
told
hitters.
Eric already, so he knows the answer. No, and the answer is not. The winners are better than the runner-ups, who are better than everybody else.
Get out!
Yep.
Really?
And if you go look at the winners, you look at them, and you're like, "Oh my God, those guys were great." Winning the home run derby. This is why this guy Walker, was it whoever won last night? It turns out it's not losing doesn't mean anything. Tons and tons of losers, but the winners. There's only maybe Teoscar Hernandez, who won last year. I don't know what that guy's going to be by the time his career is over. There's only one guy, in the last 25 years, who's clearly was not really a star, who won. Does anyone make a guess? I mean, he played for the Yankees for a while. It was Todd Frazier. I'm like, who the hell, Todd Frazier? But if you look at everybody else, it's they're big names, and that gets to the
Runners-up for big names too. I guess I'm more just sort of surprised that somehow the winner of this. Seemingly, it seems to me like a fairly random competition.
Yeah, but it's not
right.
Additional on being a big home run hitter, and I feel like all the big home run hitters. Yeah, I mean, you're selecting for big home run hitters, but beyond that, it seems random.
I don't know what to make of it.
I'm looking here, Adi, at the list, And I agree with you. I
Yeah.
mean, we could argue that Justin Morneau, I mean,
Not,
okay,
yeah.
but
He won an MVP
Ryan
though.
Howard,
He did,
Vlad
sure.
Guerrero, Prince Fielder, Big
Are you
Poppy.
looking at a
Big
similar
Poppy,
list
yep.
of the runners up?
No,
Not
I have
yet.
that list too. So
See,
that's
that's what you have to norm it
By the way,
by,
I have
right?
that. So I have that list also. I can show you that. If you look at the runners up, and they just aren't as impressive as the winners. It's not that big a drop, by the way, but all the winners. I think what's notable is all the winners are stars, and not all the runner-ups are. I mean, not even close.
Okay, guys, what about the new format? We talk a lot about tournament design. This is a small tournament design, and people made a fuss about it ahead of time. 20 pitches, no time limits, just 20 pitches, and then this neat thing where if they hit a home run on the last pitch, they can make it, take it, keep on going. So what were your assessments, ex ante and ex post, of the tournament design? Eric Eager.
I felt like it, there was, I felt like it was very clean, the way that it was. And then obviously the cool thing that you have that mimics baseball is sort of the infinite game if you stay alive, which is what the winner took advantage of at the end, which I thought was a cool add to it. But yeah, those events are tough because there's probably no one optimal answer, and you're going for entertainment probably more so than you're going for fairness in many cases. So I found it entertaining. I thought that the show moved on pretty well. And then obviously at the end it added the anything is possibleness to it, that you really want in sporting events. So I thought it was a good addition, a good update.
I always hated the timer, so I'm glad they got rid of that, because I feel like, I mean, it's already a bit of a synthetic environment, but it makes it even less like baseball. I feel like if it's like you're on kind of this like continuous clock. And I mean, I feel like it really led the players to kind of exhaust themselves a lot more in the old sort of system. I don't know if that's
also, I think also part of the skill that Adi talked about is picking the right pitches for you to swing at. And so no one forced you to swing at that pitch. There's no clock running. You could have let that ball go, and you chose not to.
Okay, that's an important refinement. It's 20 swings, not 20 pitches.
20 swings.
20 swings. Okay.
So
I like that.
I like the refinement. I love the fact that the top round was best 4 out of 8, so you didn't have to get eliminated because you've happened to have faced the unbelievable monstrosity that somebody had. I like that. The real question to me, we talked about this last year. Are they juicing the balls? Which is only, I mean, it's obviously only entertainment, right? So it doesn't really matter.
I hope so.
Yeah.
But the real question is, so the question you argue is, if they can juice the balls for the home run derby, they can juice the balls at will for wherever, and that's something that is a little uncomfortable.
Are you uncomfortable with the notion that they have the ability to juice the balls? They've been doing it like for okay, whatever.
They do it, right?
Adi wants the ball to be the same ball as it was in 1950. Come on.
Well, I do. What do you mean, Adi? Don't leave me out of that, please. That's insulting.
It's an uncomfortable reality, I guess.
Yeah, and I will say every player last night, I mean, I didn't check exactly, but I think at least to first order, every player hit a ball last night further than they've hit all season and maybe their career. No,
but they're being thrown to it like a totally different speed. That like it's
right.
Like,
and by the way, but velocity adds to distance, and they're being lobbed at 50 miles an hour.
yeah,
But
It's easier
easier to hit exactly the way they want to hit it. Though,
right. But
So
you have your career to hit, and a 95 mile an hour fastball goes further than a 50 mile an hour one.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah.
All right, guys. So
let me ask one other question. Let me ask one other question as a measurement guy. What do you think? Let's start with Eric Eager. Let's imagine they reran the home run derby a large number of times. What's the probability that the guy who won, in your estimation, would win again?
Great question, Eric.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's sort of like these questions you get in the World Cup. It's like with a pre-flop probability of the team winning, and then what happens after a goal? Like, how do you update? Do you update game state, and then do you update your posteriors on the players?
Yep.
Okay, so there's 8 of them. I thought that Walker, the guy that won, had one of the smoothest swings, I think, like relative to the rest of the field. Like I think that would play more. So I'm going to update from, you know, my
Hold on,
even.
Eric. Hold on, Eric. You're a quant. You work in a sport with great skepticism about the eye test. Have you just updated your posterior because of your expert
Well,
ability to identify good
Because
baseball swing?
the
Hey,
Erics are the
Cade, you work
team,
with the
right?
tools you have. I don't have great, like, I don't have like these models for these baseball players. Plus, I do
Some
think that,
players have a sweet swing, man. Some players just have a sweet swing.
yeah. So when I watched him swing, I felt like he was using, well, and then there was the other part of, he have the fortune of playing in the first or in the second round where he didn't have to play out the whole string, which we talked about, Adi, on the way back. That I think that helped. I mean, I'll probably say like 17.5%.
That was the only thing I was interested in was how far off 12.5 you were going to move.
Well, I mean, can I respond? Because I watched
Wow.
it's at the same context. I will say that Walker was consistent all 3 rounds. And so Schwarber was pretty consistent as well. The others were more random. I mean, we didn't see 4 of them at round 2, but I would argue that it's probably a little higher, 25%.
and you might give
Wow, that's
Schwarber the
double.
other 20
Oh,
to
I would
20.
give Schwarber. I would definitely give who else? Junior Caminero, a good chunk. He was eliminated.
Contreras looked pretty impressive.
Contreras looked really good in the first round.
First round.
He was crazy good in the first round, but looked much less convincing in the second. And that's where you get the correlation, right? So the fact that Walker went through 3, great, and the others were, and Schwarber, by the way, a very tough first half. His first 10 swings were pretty weak in the first round, and he basically just squeaked through in round 1. So that's why
the first 2 hitters were so prolific, Adi, that you and I looked at each other after they went 13, and I want to say the third one went 12. And then we said to ourselves, what's the likelihood that 13's enough to make it to the second round? And then 13 ended up leading the first round, not only just making it through.
All right, guys, let's leave that. As an outsider, should I think about the home run derby as, I mean, Adi has just told us that it's a little more diagnostic than I might have thought, but mostly it strikes me as genius entertainment, way to get more eyeballs on baseball, maybe boost popularity a little bit. They keep on tweaking the format, which is fantastic. We want to see experimentation, but it's kind of the baseball's version of the draft. I mean, the NFL has created, Eric Eager has to shut up now for a second, but the NFL has created this event in April that just, unbelievably increases attention to the league. And that's actually meaningful. That means something for future teams. This is pretty meaningless, and yet it seems to have done a similar thing for baseball. Do I have that right?
Kate, but just also to be clear, remember, it's a self-selected process to get into the home run derby, and then it's talking about winners of this self-selected process. So the fact is, if I put a bunch of first and second year players, Adi, you could clarify your statement. Some of the, if someone won let's imagine you had a first year player that got into the home run derby somehow and won the home run derby. You're not going to predict they're having a career like Vlad Guerrero, or you're not saying it has predictive validity.
Well, I mean, I don't know it, but I actually am saying that that's a possibility. I'm not saying it.
Would you say it's more just a like you're basically just stamping of approval on a player?
That's where Bradlow's
going. I think Walker's, people are going to pay attention to him in a way that they'd never paid attention to him at all. I mean, I have to say, I emailed Chaim Bloom. He's at the Cardinals. I said, "Where'd you find this guy?" And because I never heard of him, and I'm going to watch his career going forward. But the thing is about the home run derby, it's entertainment. But it sells the game because it's not the game. And one of the things that's so beautiful about baseball, and 2 things I'll point out that you notice live. First of all, they hit it an unbelievable long way. And that is just gorgeous. If you grew up around baseball, watching guys hit a ball nearly 500 feet, disappearing into the nether reaches of the stand, it's just gorgeous. The other thing is they put all these amateurs, kids out there trying to catch the balls. They're hopeless at it. And it gives you some measure of how hard it is.
We need the analytics on that.
Well, also the Philly fans were ruthless with them. Like
Yeah, no,
anytime
I
like one of
mean,
those kids in the
there
pink
were
shirt
some.
dropped the ball,
Yeah. Let me ask
not pretty.
Adi, let me ask a question both to you. Let me ask more to Cade, because
Mhm.
it comes back to motivation and stuff. Is there any possibility that winning the home run derby early in your career could be bad for your career because you start to believe you're a hitter that you're not? And or, to Adi's point, no one was paying attention to this guy Walker before. They are now. And now all of a sudden he gets tougher pitches. Maybe they spend more time studying his video. I'm just arguing, is there a possibility that this could hurt your career?
I mean, you know, I'm going to be skeptical of that, but I
Yeah.
also want to articulate the alternative possibility, which is this changes your conception of yourself. It changes what you think is possible. But mostly these are things that I don't want to take too seriously. Let us stop there for a second because Eager's going to have to leave, and he hasn't had a chance yet to direct our attention. I want to just say, Eric Eager, where would you take us? We can't talk about pro football or college football, presumably even friggin' high school football, but of the other topics available to you, where would you take us? You could make us talk about anything you want. Where are you going to go?
I've been interested in obviously the World Cup because it's, you know, in my former field of like mathematical biology, there's this theorem that says, like, in competitive environments, the only way that you get coexistence is through stochasticity, right? And like that's basically like all of sports. And I feel like
Eric,
the World Cup.
Eric, you have to say that in English before we go on.
So in competitive environments where there's like a clear ranking, and that's not even true in most sports, but when there's a clear ranking between species, let's say, the only way that you have coexistence is through randomness, right? And I feel like this
Otherwise,
World
just
Cup
the higher fitness species would just dominate and take over.
will just dominate because they're better at everything. And so, you know, you need either heterogeneous rankings, so like one team's great at defense, one team's great at offense, or you need randomness, right? You need
Yep.
you know, days where the better team loses and so on, and or the better species loses because
Yep.
of environmental factors that were unpredictable. And I think that this World Cup, while having the top 4 clubs make the semifinals, obviously is unprecedented, and in many ways feels chalky. Having watched a decent amount of these matches, I have not felt that has been the intermatch vibe.
Absolutely.
And so that has been kind of. I was at the Congo versus England game where Congo scored in the first 10 minutes of the match, and you know, we got until minute 75 before England scored. And I'm telling you, in that stadium in Atlanta, almost all the fans were either neutral or England fans, and how tense it was for those 65 minutes where it was thought of that England could bow out to the Congolese was exhilarating. And so I want, you know, obviously to throw it out to you guys. What has been your impression of the World Cup, both from like a competitive balance, but also a gameplay standpoint? I have found it as somebody who is just kind of a soccer fan, not a like a full-fledged one, and somebody who, yeah, obviously because I'm on a team, I don't like gamble or anything like that, so I don't really have any skin in the game other than, you know, wanting the U.S. to do well. I have found it as a neutral observer to be incredibly entertaining, and I found that the gameplay has been fun to watch. What have you guys thought?
It does seem. I'll just kind of echo. It's almost like the World Cup seems to have this incredible ability to like regress to chalk. Like it'll tease an upset like crazy, and you'll get all excited. You're like, no, this could really be one, and then it'll still just the same 4 teams at the end that we knew was going to be at the end. So I just, yeah, I guess I feel like it's always amazing to me, given the inherent stochasticity or randomness I see in the gameplay itself and the chances back and forth, that it does end up being kind of so chalky. And but you know, maybe I'm reading too much into the chalkiness this time around too.
A couple things that stuck out to me, Eric, were, first of all, like, Argentina to date has not been good. Like, they should have been beaten I forget, it was Egypt. They were down 2-0. I think they scored 3 goals in the last 13 minutes. And I think, as I remember, there was either a penalty or one called back because of a foul away from the ball.
It went both ways. Egypt had one called back, and Argentina didn't have one called back.
Right. And there was one in, as I remember, when I guess it was Norway was playing, was it England?
Yeah.
Where there was a foul like 3,000 feet behind the ball or something like that, that got another one called back. So I'm not saying the teams that are there don't deserve to be there. All I'm saying is that we could be talking about an entirely different narrative. In other words, if they play these games, I'll just go back to the same question I asked about the home run derby. If they play this tournament all over again, what fraction of times are these the 4 teams that make it to the semifinals? And I'm not that, and again, we're not going to talk about college football, but every beginning of every college football season, Cade asks us the same damn question, which is, pick the top 4 teams you want, assign the probability that these teams are going to be like in the last 4, when it was only 4 teams in the tournament kind of thing. And I'd say, I don't know, 40, 50%. He'd run his stem, the Massey Peabody stem, would be like 3% or something like that. We always overestimate the amount of chalk. And I'm not convinced after watching these games that if we played this tournament 1,000 times, that there'd be more than, I don't know, at most 10% of the time that these 4 teams would be the Final 4.
Yeah, but it would be
hold on. I'm just going to point out that Eric is taking a different position than Eric Eager and Shane started with, which was it seems like there's something about the inevitability. Despite the stochasticity, it seems inevitable that the better team emerges. And Shane's like, maybe I'm misremembering it. Eric's like, I don't believe that at all. One quick anecdote to throw into this on the Norway-England bit, just because I need to lament it a bit more, was that 2-for-1 that Norway had with Holland and their other player when they were up 1-0, and it was late in the first half, and the guy didn't pass the ball to Holland and ended up not making him play at all. And it's like, that would have been 2-0, and it would have been a different deal altogether. It's like, that's another one to fold into Eric's if you played this again thing. But I'm at a bit of a loss for what the model is. And we have a mathematician here to help us. What's the model of a game that feels that random, and yet there's this inexorability about the better teams emerging? Or do we have it wrong? Adi was going to try to get in.
Yeah, I want to let Eric to have the last word, but I was just going to get in is that this is the first time that there's been 1, 2, 3, 4 in the seedings, making it to the finals. So that suggests, if you look at the rankings of the top 4 historically, there's typically 1 or 2 of the top teams there, and then 2 others that are quite distant. So I think when we say the inevitability, it's almost the inevitability of the winner. And I think that that's ultimately what we're observing. And in fact, we talked about it on this show that I thought that the probability of a new winner was way too high in the betting markets. I think it was like 30%. And of course, it's not going to be a new winner. All 4 are
and just to jump in,
for the record, I personally cost Adi Wyner money because he was.
It's not you.
Bet on this.
It's my star student. One of my best of all time, Zach Bradlow. He's the one who said, he gave me the reason why it should be 30%, and I got spooked out of it, and I ended up not betting it.
I'm responsible for that.
I think if you want to go all the way back to the causality, Eric is the reason. But yeah.
Yes, that's what I was saying, Eric. I'm the reason. Right.
That does work that way. Shane was going to jump in. Shane.
Well, I just want to point out that I think, Eric, when you were talking about, these same 4 repeated over, that's too restrictive a definition of chalk. Really, I like kind of more like if we really want to say about going chalk, it's no new winners, basically. Because I mean, this time England happened to be in the Final 4. Maybe in like half the repetitions, Brazil's in the Final 4 instead.
I'm good with that.
It's always the same 6 teams.
I was intentionally using a restrictive definition.
Yeah.
I like your definition better. I agree with that.
Yeah.
Because I make your point, Shane, that make it up, as Eric Eager was saying, maybe the Congo beats England. Could very well be. But let's see them beat 3 other teams.
Spain and then France or whatever their path would be. Exactly.
Guys, I have a question for y'all. We've all paid more, maybe, I don't know, maybe Adi hasn't. Adi has some hater tendencies on this sport. We all have watched more soccer over the last 6 weeks than we have on the previous 4 years. What is one thing that you appreciate about the sport now that you've learned or learned to appreciate over the last 6 weeks? Something new about the sport. Eric Eager first.
Yeah, to me, there's two things. Sorry, the one is
please.
how non-monotone the win probabilities. Like if you just look at either the the markets or the if you look at the like the models, the extra time and the penalty kicks, especially in this
Oh,
knockout round, like the fact that there's like, and one of my friends alerted me to this, so it's not necessarily original, but I noticed, I cannot not notice it now, where it's, once you're getting into minute 80, the probability of the favorite winning, it grows quite a bit because there's no time for an answer, and then all of a sudden this new third of a game opens up where there's an opportunity for the underdog to match if there were to be a goal scored by the favorite. And so like that, in games that are a little bit more sudden death, in overtime, like American football, or at least or in some ways, the historical version of it, you would have win probabilities that were a little bit more monotone as the game was finishing. So that's one that I really, and then the other part that I just don't think,
Eric, let me just
if you didn't
real quickly, Eric, real quickly, because you're making a very interesting point, but you're using technical language that some of our listeners won't be with. Monotonicity means it's always either increasing or staying the same and never starts decreasing. And Eric is pointing out that these probabilities go up and come down over the late at different points in the game, especially with extra time. And that's odd for sports. And that's an interesting observation.
Yeah, just
Sorry,
because
go ahead.
you have these different sticking points in the game that are interesting, and so it was fun to watch that and to kind of and to think about it. And then I just didn't grow up watching this or playing the sport. It's much more physical than I thought it was, and that part of it, like I forget which, I think it was Belgium. I mean, Belgium had a guy in the, I think I was center back or some position. I'd say this is how little I know still, but one of those where the guy's like literally just like bodying other players in the middle of the pitch for like the whole game. And that guy could play fullback for a team. It felt like at the end of the game, how physical he was. And that's just something that I think it was fun to be introduced to.
Yeah, that's great. Somebody else. Let's hear something from everybody on something you appreciate. And Adi, yours can be negative if you want it to be negative. Eric Bradlow.
No, it's actually, I don't have negativity. I've enjoyed watching quite a bit of soccer. I would say that it's much more fun to have a rooting interest. And I know lots of people have talked about loving to watch soccer just to watch soccer. That part I haven't quite figured out yet, but if you have a rooting interest, that game is unbeatable because you're just literally at the edge of your seat for 90 minutes and you just don't come off it. There's no relaxation because there's no, I mean, now they have hydration breaks, but other than that, it's just, what I don't get, I don't want to be negative, what I don't get, but I'm going to be, what I don't get is when you don't care. I mean, really, what the hell? It's just like,
some of the rest of us might chime in on that one. Mine will chime in on that one a little bit. Shane or Eric Bradlow?
I'll just say a couple things. One is I realize, obviously, we were more excited after the group stage in the first game. The U.S. is very far away. I mean, they lost badly to Belgium, who is not really competitive against the top teams. Even just their skill level in passing, it's a totally different game watching them play. Forget the outcome of the game. Just watch the passing and the movement and everything else. So that was one thing. The second thing was, I think it's crucially important to have someone that, remind me, Adi, XG plus, remind me that you guys were talking about last week on the show, which is, again, some guys just help create goals. And I understand, like, that's part of the reason they've advanced. But I mean, Mbappe is special. Messi is special. Harry Kane is special. Bellingham, special. So all I'm commenting on is that to win without one of these, I'll call them all-time greats, in my opinion, is very, very hard to do. Because when it comes down to it, you're going to need someone that either scores really efficiently or creates goals for other people when it's not really there. And I think having superstars really matters. That's just my opinion.
This is
And credit to the
op-
U.S.
Go
Oh,
ahead,
go
Shane.
ahead, Kate.
Well, I was going to say this, just noting the difference. We just saw the Carolina Hurricanes win a Stanley Cup with a different philosophy. Their philosophy was depth, and we're not going to worry about going at the trade deadline to get a big star. We're going to win through having 4 great lines. It's very counter for hockey, just proved out this year, than Eric is suggesting for soccer. But Shane, please jump in.
Well, no, and I mean, I guess I was going to make the glib comment that we've at least advanced such that the U.S. has recognized that when they have one of those stars available, but they're not available for the game in question, they just need they need to go that extra step and make the call.
Make the call. Okay, Shane, what else you got? What else you got on the sport?
I unfortunately I have to go a little negative in that I continue to be frustrated by the offsides and the way offsides is implemented in soccer, and I feel like a lot of kind of really cool goals are called back, kind of against the spirit of. I mean, I understand the spirit of the rule, but I'm dreaming big of a future where we have like kind of more like an end zone kind of structure. And I want you guys to kind of think or maybe push back on this if you think it's a stupid idea.
There would still be a boundary somewhere that could be violated by a toe.
There's still a line, but it would be more like in hockey where all you have to do is make sure that
You've got one thing back.
there's nobody in that zone before the ball is in that zone, which is easier to kind of enforce and kind of
Just to be clear, Shane, you're saying it's okay to be offsides as long as you're not in some zone.
Yeah, like changing exactly. And so like, I mean, I understand the intent of offsides, like so you don't have cherry picking and all this kind of like, type of behavior. I get that, but changing it to a point where it's like, you can have a little bit more back and forth because essentially it just works to suppress goals. And a lot of cool, essentially legitimate looking goals are suppressed, especially now with VAR aided kind of like, by microns offside kind of calls.
All right, guys, I'll give mine. We need to wrap up and cut Eric Eager loose here. But just to close the loop, I'll say 2 real quick ones. One, the diving is just horrendous and possibly disqualifying for the sport. If you could decide you don't like soccer just because of the diving, I think that's utterly reasonable position to take. I mean, I just think it's absurd. We're training new kids every year into the culture of lie about what happened in order to advance your team. But more, what I do appreciate, and I think I appreciated more this time than ever before, was, and this is my answer to you, Adi. It feels to me like almost every moment of the entire match, there's a contest of skill going on. Like, can the player keep the ball? Can the player keep it away from this other guy? Can the player connect a pass? Like, almost every moment, there's something that I couldn't do that's playing out there, and it's a contest of 1 or 2 guys. And I think that's a neat feature of the sport. Why don't we stop there? We've kept Eric Eager longer than we expected to. Eric, we could go on for a long time with you. We hope to see you back again soon. We wish you the best with everything that's going to come this season for the Carolina Panthers.
Well, thanks for having me, guys. It's a pleasure and honor. And like you said, go Panthers.
Go Panthers. Eric Eager, VP of Football Analytics at the Carolina Panthers, rolling into what I believe is his 3rd season in that position, which happens to track, he and Brent Tillis got there at the same time, and it happens to track the progress of their 1-loss record. Go track it. Go look at it. That's analytics for you. Welcome to the second half of this week's show. We are just off the line with Eric Eager, VP of Football Analytics with the Carolina Panthers, longtime friend of the show, helped create the R&D group at PFF, kind of turned it into what it became before leaving there. He was also with Sumer. We missed that in the introduction.
Oh, yeah.
He was with Super Sports for a couple of years between PFF and the Carolina Panthers. Eric, always fun to talk to. Adi rolled off the show as well. Adi is mid-teaching and is wearing down vocally. So in order to preserve his best for his students, he's going to take the second half of the show off. Eric Bradlow, Shane Jensen, and I will be in here through the balance, run about 15, 20 minutes here, second half of the show. We got a lot of sports going on. It's a good time of year. I'm curious. We talked a lot of baseball, home run derby in particular. We talked World Cup. What else, fellas?
One thing from the World Cup. It just flashed up on my phone. So it's 60 minutes into the game. It's now 2-0 Spain. And I just want to point out, by the way, that prior to this game, France had twice the win probability. essentially of any other team. They were almost at 40%. It wasn't
For the
exactly
championship.
20, but it was close enough. And they're down 2-0 with 30 minutes to play.
Yeah, they've been the most impressive club. Everybody has said the ex-ante odds were highest, and then everybody's been more impressed with them than anybody else. So here we get to see some of Eric Eager's stochasticity that we were talking about, and more the Eric Bradlow model of soccer than what we were talking about. Well, let's see how it plays out. Okay, that's on the World Cup front. What else, fellas?
So I'd love to talk Wimbledon, but I'm going to skip that for a second. I'd love to talk Scotty Scheffler and him missing his first cut in like 86 years, but I'm not going to talk about that either. Although if we go a second round, this is more for Shane. So turns out my son Zach, who Eric Eager already mentioned, his girlfriend who's serious with, about to move in, she's a big Anaheim Ducks fan. And Leo Carlson is on the Ducks. And someone has to explain to me how Leo Carlson, who I'm not an expert in hockey, as you know. I just looked up his stats for last season. He scored 67 points in 70 games, which is very good.
Mm-hmm.
He was +4. His plus minus was +4, which I don't know, doesn't seem great to me. How is this man the highest paid player in hockey?
I mean, it's kind of. I guess I can explain kind of the concept of like restricted free agency in hockey, where a hockey player has basically gotten, I think, to the end of their first contract, but has not gotten enough service time, essentially gotten enough service time, or has not been around long enough to be an unrestricted free agent. So the kind of during that kind of period, other teams can basically essentially extend offers to the players, which the Flyers did, and then the home team kind of has, the option to pick to essentially match or not. And if they don't match, then the player moves and there's draft picks that come across in compensation. So this is a case where you've got like a young, incredibly good center, like, I mean, a top player for the future, I think, but like not, kind of certainly at a superstar level yet, but that Anaheim was essentially forced to lock up, didn't want to let go, but was forced to lock up, I think, at like kind of a higher offer than they otherwise would have because of the Philadelphia offer.
Yeah, so that's what I thought happened. So just to let you know, so he's getting 5 years and $90 million. First of all, I wasn't even aware that the highest paid players in hockey weren't at a higher level. Like, I didn't realize, if you had told me 18 million, by the way, I think it's the highest by 3 million. But if you had told me, I would have been shocked that that's the highest number. Let's just start with that.
So hold on, Eric, hold on.
Yes,
I mean, I'm almost shocked in the other direction that there is somebody making 18 a year now. Hockey has been categorically below everything else for a while.
I see. Well, this guy, Leo Carlson, is making 18 million a year.
Okay, so real quickly, my base rate explanation without knowing anything, not explanation, hypothesis would have been an increased salary cap. So I don't know what the salary cap did this year, but the best way to get the highest salary ever
this does, I think, set a new high water mark. Though the cap is going up, this does set, I think, a new high water mark for percentage of cap taken up.
Percent of cap. Okay, there you go.
At least in the next year. Again, we're kind of comparing AAV, and I don't know exactly how the contract's structured and stuff like that. But yes, I do believe that this might be a new high water mark, but it's going to quickly get passed. So Connor Bedard is a big winner out of this, because he's kind of entering that same kind of phase now, and some of the it's sort of like I think kind of teams of obviously, like in hockey, like anything else, want to kind of lock up their young stars, but I think those young stars are kind of getting expensive now.
Let me build on what Cade said earlier. Remember when I was talking about, we were talking with Eric Eager about the superstar model in soccer, but we were talking about the Hurricanes who won with depth and all that. So I'm making an assumption, I'm not an expert, that there is a hard cap potentially in hockey. There's a salary cap in hockey, right?
Yeah.
So they were planning on paying Carlson $13 million, and now he got 40% above that number. That has to impact the team's ability to build the kind of depth you're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
So what impact will, if the top end goes up, what, like, you could build a statistical model that would say, number one, you better build much more accurate models of superstardom. Number two, you better have a model then where you can't have that kind of depth because the salary cap is going to restrict you because this guy's now eating up. I don't know what the salary cap is in hockey, but this guy might be eating up 30% of the salary cap. I don't know if it's
No, it's not that much. It's more like,
is it 100 million?
like,
What's the salary cap in hockey? Is it 100 million?
I think I saw
know
somewhere
that.
that I think he's going to be eating up like 17 to 18% of the
So that would mean
cap.
roughly 100 million. It's 100 million. But that's one player who's eating up. How many players are on a hockey team? Is it 20?
Yeah,
25,
25.
I think.
25. So this guy's eating up 4.5x the
base
salary
rate.
cap.
Yeah, but again, it's the new high watermark. But I think the highest before was like 15, 16. Like it's not. This is not a dramatic jump in that percentage of the cap taken up by one player. I agree. It obviously does, just like we talk about, if you're going to have Patrick Mahomes on your team making whatever percent of the salary cap, you better draft really well because you're not going to have as much flexibility.
Right.
I think it does. It does have that same sort of effect. It's just, I guess hockey doesn't usually have it quite attributed as much to one player.
It also doesn't have the ability of like a Patrick Mahomes to say, you know what, or a Tom Brady to say, you know what, don't worry, just pay me 40 million. I don't need 60 million. In hockey, trust me, these guys are grabbing every dollar they can, and they should.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah,
I want to note that Eric is bringing hockey into the conversation, which is not usually what he does. So Shane, you and I should be really happy that Bradlow.
No, that's amazing.
You're in
I
July
want
of
to
all
talk
things.
about tennis and golf. I'm happy. If it gets back to me, I will. Don't worry.
So Shane, you're up next, buddy. What do you got?
Well, I'll go. Yeah, I mean, I guess I'll do a baseball one just because I think it was within this past week that Justin Verlander announced that he's going to retire at the end of this season, and essentially, I kind of see him and Max Scherzer once those both retire as a past veteran. And in fact, it'll be I think somebody calculated this out. It'll be the first once Max Scherzer retires, once Verlander and Scherzer are both retired. It'll be the first time since 1879 that there's not a 200 game winner in Major League Baseball. And you could ask if there's ever going to be another 200 game winner again, but there'll certainly be.
Do you know who's third, Shane? I just looked it up while you were speaking. Do you know who's third?
Like right now, Cole, probably Garrett Cole.
Yeah, Garrett Cole, 156.
Yeah.
It's not close.
Yeah, no, I mean, Chris Sale's, I think Chris Sale's in that kind of range too. But both, I mean, getting another 50 wins out of either of those two guys at their stage of your career is, I mean, chancy at best. We may be looking at the last of the Scherzer and Verlander, maybe the last of the 200 game winners.
So this absolutely stunning. And one of the fun things about baseball is that you can go back 150 years, and that's just extraordinary. But when we grew up, the 20 game winner was kind of a benchmark, essentially. Am I thinking about that correctly?
Yeah.
What is the benchmark these days for good starting pitchers? And the number, like a good starting pitcher might win how many games a year?
18, 17, I think. I mean, probably
higher than I would have thought.
That's probably the top wins among pitchers, not necessarily the Cy Young. Yeah.
Okay.
I think the max still often gets to 17, 18 in a season.
So
we've
don't
got
think
Christopher Sanchez, I think, already has 11 or 12
11.
wins right
He
now.
won 11. I think at least 11. I saw him win 11.
Yeah.
But Shane, what you're pointing out is a couple things. One is we talk about this, like wins are not just an individual statistic. So first, the Phillies have to be a good team for a long period of time, assuming Sanchez stays in the Phillies. You have to have a good team around you because you could have and then you have to pitch probably to win even 200. You probably have to have a very, very, very good 10-year stretch, even in today's days, to win 15 plus a year for 10 plus years. And they say, you say, well, just win 17 a year for 10 years. Oh, come on.
No, not when 17 is closer to the max across all baseball in the year, as opposed to something that even the elite pitchers can consistently replicate.
Also, I want to observe, I heard in passing, I caught some news bit a week or so ago. Paul Skeens had started like 7 or 8 games without a win with the Pirates.
Right.
I mean, he's like one of the best pitchers in baseball, goes 7 or 8 starts without a win.
Felix Hernandez
incredible.
was obviously had a near Hall of Fame career, but was never really on good teams. It's very
Right.
sad.
Yeah, I think he should be in the Hall of Fame, but we'll talk about that another day.
All right, let's go with one more. And
Eric,
this
Eric, come on, give us something.
I'm
Oh.
going, but it's going to be in service of Eric as well. It's what I would have picked, but you'll be happy with it, Eric. And that is the British Open, the Open, as they say, as the cognizant I call it. The Open is this weekend. It is the last of the majors. We end in July now, don't we? Because the PGA got forward. So this is the last of the 4 majors. It's at Royal Birkdale, which is one on the rotation. And the notable thing is that Scheffler is still the not the odds on favorite. He's the favorite, but barely. And McIlroy basically is just right there behind him. And the question that Eric raised before the show was, we think that there's a lot of momentum in golf. Not that we think. We know this. We know the sports bettors map it. The quants map it. They know this. Scheffler missed his first cut last weekend at the Scottish Open. First time in, I think, 78 starts.
Yep, 78.
Which it's a long way from the record, but it's still it's like the 5th or 6th longest, I think, and a very good run, obviously. Eric asks, why is he still the favorite if we know that cyclicality matters, momentum matters in golf? And he seems to have been drifting down in recent tournaments.
Yeah.
So what do you expect out of Scheffler coming into Royal Birkdale this weekend?
I expect Scheffler to play well. I do not expect him to win. I mean, he hasn't won on the PGA Tour since he's won once early in the season. He's played extremely well. I told you about he's been riddled with horrible second place finishes. So it's not like, but a couple of them were backdoor. But I mean, the guy still had a streak of 30-something top 25s in a row. I predict Scheffler will be in the top 25. I will put him in 10th plus or minus 5. That would be my confidence interval for his performance. But I do not expect him to win. I don't know why anybody would. I'm not saying anybody. Given the momentum right now, there's a number of top golfers playing better than him. So I do not expect him to win. I'll stand by my interval.
Real quickly, let's just note also that Scotty is the defending champ, having won last year. But he's at 15-2. Rory's at 17-2. Matt Fitzpatrick comes in number 3 at 16-1. Tommy Fleetwood still searching for his first major, 18-1. Jon Rahm, former dominant Jon Rahm, he is 5th at 22-1. And then just running through the next few names, Chris Gotterup, who's been a new guy on the scene in the last year or two. Colin Morikawa is back to playing good golf. Ludwig Oberg, the Texas Tech Red Raider, Scandinavian. Xander Schauffele, Justin Rose, Wyndham Clark, Cameron Young, Robert McIntyre, Tyrrell Hatton.
Any of these guys could win. These guys are
Victor Hovland
just will be open.
Yeah,
the
so
US
this
Open.
it's a good little run. But one of the things that this reminds me of, I think we speculated on it the last couple of years. How many this is a modeling question for y'all. Just help me understand how you statisticians would think about it. There's multiple arcs that we might imagine. Is this a reasonable way to think about it? Here's the question. How many arcs could we give a golfer to capture momentum in a chronological performance as a function of chronological time? And I want to say like on 3 different frequencies. Obviously, there's a life curve. There's a career age curve to a golfer. We observe this kind of, I don't know, there is momentum.
Like in and out of the zone kind of thing.
There's a zone thing, but then there's something kind of in the middle, which is like golfers seem to kind of go through these longer term ups and downs. Like Morikawa was down for a couple of years. It wasn't that he was down for a month or a summer. He was down for a couple of years. So how many curves, how reasonable is it to model golfers this way? Is to say, let's throw an age curve in there. Let's throw a heater. He's on a heater right now curve. And then let's throw kind of a medium frequency curve that just captures what seems to be the truth about golfers, that their games kind of ebb and flow over a medium term. Is that reasonable? And is Scheffler entering? Is Scheffler entering an ebb on that middle frequency? Is he ebbing now on that middle frequency?
No, what it kind of struck me as you were kind of describing these three different kind of frequencies is it was kind of reminding me a little bit about baseball hitters. Baseball hitters certainly they have the overall career arc. They have the kind of like within a season, a lot of ups and downs, kind of like maybe like their mechanics change or something like that. There's kind of ups and downs of that frequency. I think they're prevented a little bit less because it's a team sport and they'll get selected out. Those kind of like 2 or 3 year period ups and downs are probably more present in golf compared to a team sport because they're just not tolerated basically in more of a team.
Right. You don't observe them.
Right.
Yeah, I like it, Shane. Cade. I think that's an excellent way to think about it. I remember, Shane's too young as a statistician, but not that you don't know who Mike West is, but I remember when they were doing these time series types of wavelet decompositions, like you observe some high, frequency types of series. And it's exactly what you're saying, Cade, which is you need, how many different curve types or at what frequency are you going to analyze the data? You're going to do some sort of spectral or other form of decomposition of a time series. And I think that is what you would find for golf. I think you would find some long-term age curve or trend. I think you'd find some short-term, but I think there would be some medium one, which could last a couple of seasons. And look, let's remember, Scottie Scheffler's last 4 years ago, roughly, he had won 0 tournaments. Okay. He's won 4 majors, I think it is, and 20 or 21 tournaments in the last 4 years. If he did that for the next 4 years, you'd have to put him in the top 10 golfers of all time, just on his record. I mean, 40 wins and 8 majors would put you at Tom Watson greatness. And I'm not saying Scheffler won't get there, but okay, so maybe over the next 4 years, he wins 1 or 2 majors and only 10 tournaments. Okay, well, then he's still as great as Nick Faldo and Phil Mickelson, and he'll be 33 years old. And then he'll still have another 15 years to do stuff. So, I think it's just we have forgotten that this man was 25 years old and had won nothing. And now all of a sudden, he's a Hall of Famer. He's a Hall of Famer right now. So I don't know if this is an ebb and flow. Maybe it's just like, it's not fair to the only comparison you could say is he going to have like the 12, 10, 15-year heater that Tiger Woods had? That's a benchmark. Yeah, it's an unfair benchmark. He's had one of the great 4-year runs in all of golf history. And for that to continue, I mean,
well,
I love it. I love Scottie Scheffler, but it's not going to happen.
Right. It's not, but that the inevitability of it not is interesting. It's just interesting, like what's going on that they cycle in and out. Like what happened with Jordan Spieth? I mean, he cycled out and he has to cycle back.
Another example. Spieth is a great example because Spieth, I think, won 3 majors and he's stuck on 3, but he had
in 15 minutes.
Yeah. We could make an argument that if we erase the last 2 years, what I've been talking about in our show for 12 years, that was Rory McIlroy. Rory McIlroy had a 4-year heater between age 21 and 25. People thought he was going to win 15 majors. And then for 11 or 12 years, he won 0 and actually didn't. And he won a bunch of tournaments, but not majors. Now, all of a sudden, of course, he's vindicated because he's got 6 majors and 2 back-to-back Masters. But I agree with you. Spieth had this incredible. Spieth's a great example. And by the way, I think most golf experts, would be a question for Rufus Peabody, I don't think most people think Spieth's ever getting back.
I know, exactly.
Well, I mean, it's interesting because I feel like golf especially is such a mix of athleticism. It's both athletic and mechanics, but it's also psychologically mental, right? And so it's, it's kind of, I think it is more fascinating. Like something like tennis, I think maybe the trajectories are a little bit more just athleticism based or whatever, I think. Or maybe.
Well, hold on. On that note, let's throw Eric one more bone. Yeah. I watched the 3rd set tiebreak that Coco Gauff played against Machova in the semifinals, where she had a volley on match point. She had a volley at the net on match point that she just completely choked. It was as bad a stroke as you'll see a player take in major tennis.
She tried to hit a touch drop shot when She rockets the ball down the line. The match is over. It was a bad shot choice. Forget just that she didn't execute it. It was the wrong shot.
You just hate to see sports decided like that. You just hate to see those kinds of moments, but you worry about the athlete in those situations. Like, when do they come over that? I mean, that's going to stay with her. She has to somehow overcome it. It was a bad moment. Why don't we wrap there, guys? We've gone the full hour now. For the whole team, for Eric Eager, our guest this week, and for Adi Wyner, who is working on campus with Eric Eager this week and has been in absentia this second half of the show. For Shane Jensen back from points far abroad, for Eric Bradlow here despite being far abroad, for the whole team, for Dee Patel, the boss lady, for the Grod squad who is running the show these days, and Jacob Grodnick, who's on the board today. Many thanks. And many thanks to you guys for listening. Come back and join us next time. Between now and then, enjoy your sports.